Hello, welcome back to my car. We're just going to keep right on going with Genesis chapter 2, the WEB. The heavens, the earth, and all their vast array were finished. On the seventh day, God finished his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because he rested in it from all his work of creation which he had done. The author is very insistent that like I think he's trying to convey, how much effort, how much work it would be to create a universe. But I mean, he's basing that on his own belief of God. Like, you made up the fact that he invented the world. There's no reason to believe that. Um, and you're making up the fact that he's resting in it from all his work of creation. Does God need to rest? Did his energy run low? What are the limits of his powers? Because it seems like his powers have limits. I don't know. Maybe they'll go into that later. Maybe I'm just, asking asking the wrong questions at the wrong time. I'll just hang on to them, and we'll continue. Oh, actually, let's check out this passage in King James Version. And so the King James Version says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made." I mean, it's relatable, right? It's fucking, oh my god, I've been working all week. This day is for me. Like, that's the most relatable God has been this whole time. But it's also a weirdly human thing. Like, I wouldn't think that that would apply to God. I feel like he'd be able to create like infinite universes if he wanted to, all in the same day, right? Like, if he wanted to. Why did he break it up over 7 days? He didn't want to get tuckered out too soon? I guess a more charitable interpretation would be that uh, it took a lot of effort to create the world, however it was created, and us on it. And, I think it's meant to be like a humbling thing. Like, wow, so much went into us being here. Isn't that incredible? And it is. It absolutely is. Um, I don't think it was a guy. I don't think it was a guy up there saying, "Heard the earth, here the plants, here the water." Like, I think it, if anything, he pressed, well, I was going to say, if anything, he pressed the start simulation button and just let it run. But, like, simulations, that's not giving them enough credit. You got to design the simulation, you got to, like, set parameters. And if we're going with that explanation of God, my interpretation is that he didn't do it in real time. He wasn't making these things over the 7 days, but he could have designed a universe with such parameters that he knew it would generate these features. And, you could say that that's the same thing. And so it seems like it's kind of which part of the message do you want to take at the time? And you have to adapt it based on what is written. And so, like, on the one hand, I think you're supposed to believe that God is all powerful. On the other hand, for this particular passage, it helps if you believe that he needs a rest, because that way you appreciate your existence more. But, like, that's lying. That's lying to get an effect. The truth should be consistent in all, context once you have enough information. And the more information we get, the less this makes sense, which implies that it is not truth. But that's just what I believe based on what I'm seeing. All right, so regardless of which version we were looking at, it seems it took God 7 days or 6 days to make the earth and the heavens, and then after all that work, he rested. Whether he needed the rest or not, he rested, and he made that day of rest holy. He sanctified it, because he was resting. It says because he rested in it from all his days. So Moses' logic is that God sanctifies or blesses the Sabbath because he rested in it. Like, that's the word that he uses, is because. I don't fully understand. I was tired from 6 days of work, so I rested, and now every seventh day is holy because that's a good time to take a break. Like, maybe. I mean, I could kind of get behind we should have regular breaks. That's definitely true. I don't know if it should be once every 7 days. I guess we could try to kind of reverse engineer that into, like, a seventh of your time should be for resting, but that doesn't sound like enough rest. But then if we say it's conscious time, waking time, 2 to 3 hours out of your 16-hour day, you should rest, maybe. I still feel like that's not enough. And I'm probably just on the wrong track entirely with how I'm interpreting it that way. So, I mean, it seems very arbitrary as to why the seventh day or the Sabbath or Sunday should be holy, should be blessed. I'm assuming this isn't when the Sabbath became a big deal, or is it? Did Moses make that happen when he wrote Genesis, or is he writing about something that he already observed, which is, the Sabbath or shit, let me look that up. Yeah, this is Moses inventing the Sabbath. It's very arbitrary. There's no reason to assume it took God 6 days to make the world, or to make the heavens, to make us. There's no reason to assume he would need a rest. Moses, what are you doing? But that's fine. We'll go on to the next passage, which looks like verses 4 through 17. This is the history of the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh God made the earth and the heavens. Oh, there's a footnote there. Yahweh is God's proper name, sometimes rendered Lord, all caps, in other translations. Right, because there was a thing where, you're not even supposed to say Yahweh, or at least there's a certain sect or something about that. I'll read more about that later. For now, focusing on the Bible, just the words that it says. For Yahweh God had not caused it to rain on the earth. No plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up. Hold on. This is the history of the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh God made the earth and the heavens. No plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for Yahweh God had not caused it to rain on the earth. There was not a man to till the ground, but a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Yahweh God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Yahweh God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground Yahweh God made every tree to grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it was parted and became the source of 4 rivers. The name of the first is Pishon. It flows through the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and onyx stone are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the same river that flows through the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. This is the one which flows in front of Assyria. The fourth river is the Euphrates. Yahweh God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. Yahweh God commanded the man, saying, You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. So I got a little bit hung up at the start, because I'm a bit confused. No plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field has yet sprung, because God hadn't made it rain yet. So he made, this is post-creation? This is after the 6 days? Or did we jump back into the 6 days where he hadn't made it rain yet? And I like how it says, there was not a man to till the ground. Yeah, we didn't need him. Plants could grow without man. Yahweh had not caused it to rain on the earth. It was probably raining the whole time, right? Or at least ever since we've had an atmosphere. Mist rose up from the earth. Yeah, we get condensation on the plants and stuff, and that can evaporate on up, and we get fog, we get mist for sure. Yahweh God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And my non-theistic interpretation of that is, we came out of the same, dust and dirt and, rocks. We're just made of stuff, stuff that's been floating around, stuff that happened to clump together in a way that was able to stick around and have descendants. So why did God make man? Unclear. It was part of the first one. He saw that it was good, though, so he's happy about it. Man is happy about it. Yahweh God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Out of the ground Yahweh God made every tree to grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Out of curiosity, did Yahweh God do the other trees, the ugly trees that we don't eat off of, or did he just not make those? Where did those come from? Did those come out of the parts of earth that he didn't make? Are there parts of earth he didn't make? He made the creeping things on the ground, so I'm assuming he also made the ugly trees. But we're focusing on the pretty ones, because we're humans, and we're selfish. So it seems to me like we're just getting more specific about what we heard in chapter 1. This is like what plants God was creating and where he put man. And I don't know how much of this lines up with real world geography. I'm assuming not much, but also if this was at the dawn of time or even the dawn of man, geography was very different back then. So it's, who could say? So even if geography was different, at the dawn of man, Moses wouldn't know what it looked like. The names of the rivers wouldn't mean anything because there's no English, there's no language. Well, Hebrew, there's no Greek, there's no language at the dawn of man when Adam's the first guy. But whatever, right? We'll assume. I mean, I can't assume that it was actually God talking to him. I can only assume it was his own voice in his head saying, "Hey, it's me, God. I'm telling you what you want to hear." And he says, "Oh, great. That's what I wanted to hear." And he writes it all down for everyone else. And so they mention a few different lands here. I don't know how important they'll be. A river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it was parted and became the source of 4 rivers. The name of the first is Pishon. It flows through the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Why is gold good? Why does God care about gold? Bdellium and onyx stone are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the same river that flows through the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. This is the one which flows in front of Assyria. The fourth river is the Euphrates. Yahweh God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. Yahweh God commanded the man, saying, "You may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die." So he can eat from every tree of the garden, including the tree of life, I guess, but not the one of the knowledge of good and evil, even though God put that in the same garden with not even a fence around it. And he's telling these people that if you eat it, you will die. Okay. Why'd you put a tree like that next to me, God? That's a little scary, but okay. Thanks, Dad. And I want to flip over to the King James Version and see what they think of 4-17. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that the phrasing of this man trips me up. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. We didn't mention Ethiopia. We mentioned the land of Cush. Maybe it's the same, whatever. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. So it's pretty similar. They do say dress and keep the garden instead of, cultivate it. It really seems like God is all about appearances. And the newer versions of the Bible are trying to smooth that over and be like, no, it's like cultivate. That's what he means. He means it'll look good because it's good. It's not superficial. It's representative. In both versions, God is very clear. Don't eat this tree I put right next to all the other trees that you're supposed to eat from. You will die if you eat from this tree in particular. Have fun. Bye. And then he just leaves them unattended, I guess. But the part where God abandons his children with no babysitter comes later. For now, we're going back to verses 18 through 25 in the WEB. Yahweh God said, It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground Yahweh God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the sky, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. Whatever the man called every living creature became its name. Weird. The man gave names to all livestock and to the birds of the sky and to every animal of the field, but for man there was not found a helper comparable to him. Yahweh God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. As the man slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Yahweh God made a woman from the rib which he had taken from the man and brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She will be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man will leave his father and his mother and will join with his wife, and they will be one flesh. The man and his wife were both naked, and they were not ashamed." Oh yeah, we do also have some footnotes. Back up in 2:12, mentioned the gold of the land is good. Bdellium and onyx stone are also there. Bdellium, it says, is aromatic resin. When he's saying, "I will make him a helper comparable to man," other translations might be suitable for or appropriate for. And the impression I get from reading these verses is that he had man take a look at all the animals and be like, any of these your companion? What do you think? And the man's giving them all names. And he's like, pretty fuckable, but pass. Some of these are close, God, but I don't think anyone quite hits the mark. And so God was like, well, I created you in my image, so you're probably as vain as me. So I'm going to make a person that looks almost just like you that you'll want to bang. And so Yahweh God went, "Sleep." And Adam fell into a sleep. And while Adam was sleeping, God just pulled his rib out, fashioned a woman from it. Why did God need to use Adam's rib to make a woman? Why couldn't he invent a separate woman? This is a really big problem with the Bible as we get into more modern times, when we have to admit that women are people too. The Bible is constantly saying no, women were second, men were first, and then women. Women were made to be a companion to men, and it's like, oh my God, that's pretty fucked up, man. You shouldn't have that in your anything. And then Yahweh God made a woman from the rib. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She will be called woman." He's naming her just like he named all the animals. Therefore, a man will leave his father and his mother. Wait, a what and a what? A father and a mother? What are those? Because these people were just created. One guy was made out of dust and the other lady was made out of his rib. What the hell is a father and a mother? She will be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man will leave his father and his mother and will join with his wife, and they will be one flesh. What mother and father? What are they even talking about? Why is this setting any kind of precedent? I made a woman out of you, therefore you will leave your parents, which I know is a weird concept. Me, I guess. You'll leave me, your God, your parent, dad, God, to join with your wife and become one flesh, and you won't even be ashamed that you're naked. Why should you be? Well, I'll invent a reason later, don't worry. So that's the WEB translation of 18 through 25. We're going to hop over to KGV. I always want to say KGV. It's KJV. The King James version. Well, I want to play the King James. But no, we're in the King James version. This is no time for games or merriment. This is time for Bible. "And the Lord God said, It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him." Is that the translation? That might just be a Bible Gateway flub. "And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him." That's the translation? An helpmeet? Maybe I don't know what words mean, but that doesn't make no fucking sense to me. We'll go with the other translation and assume it's just, a suitable companion. Another question I have, he's naming all these creatures in what language? Hebrew? Greek? Pre-Hebrew? Pre-Greek? Neanderthal? Every animal was named. "And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. I don't know what it means by the shame thing. Best I can figure is that early people, seeing genitalia does have an effect on the human mind. And so, like, even cavemen at a certain point were probably aware that, like, we should cover this up, partly because if people see it, they might want something from me, and partly because if people see it, they might want to attack that part. They might see it as a vulnerable spot, a weakness. But as for God's perfect little dolls, I don't know why they would care. He made them thoughtless. He made them, like I said, dolls. Like, that's how I kind of see this, is he's playing with his action figures. He doesn't see them as people. He doesn't see them as, like, thinking things. He sees them as an amusement, like little toys that he made. I personally haven't been too impressed by the first 2 chapters of Genesis. It really does just come across like Moses inventing things, imagining things, and it's a fun story. It's a story that keeps you engaged. You're like, well, how did we get made? And then, what was it like to create us? And, making God relatable by having him take a little day of rest. You start to relate to him, and you start to root for him. At least in theory. I know what this asshole ends up doing, so I'm not so much falling for it this time around. I guess in my version of the Bible, God would not be creating everything hand by hand. He wouldn't be singling out humans as special. He would be more of a guide, and the only reason that humans have any kind of relationship with him is because we are smart enough, because we have the capacity to perceive him. But in my version of the Bible, God is basically a stand-in just for truth. We have the capacity to perceive all the things that are around us now, with more detail than ever before in human history. And so many people just aren't even looking. So many people are, focused on heaven or hell, or their little small parts of the world, and not thinking of it as a whole, not thinking of how we all interact together, and how as the internet continues to, help us share ideas with each other, the planet itself really is kind of like a giant brain, and we're all different cells or neurons in it, exchanging information with each other, sending signals to each other. And I think that sooner or later, collectively, we're going to kind of have to confront the God question, collectively and individually. That's kind of the thing, is you can't be fully independent, because we do live in a world together, and you can't be, you don't want to give up your free will. You don't want to give up your independence, because that's a valuable asset. That's something that you can use that no one else can, because no one else is exactly in your position with exactly your perspective. And when you surrender that to something that isn't real, I think it limits you. I think you limit yourself without realizing it, and I think it makes it easy for you to focus on the wrong things, focus on things that maybe aren't even there. But that's just my take so far based on what I've read. I'm kind of enjoying this, so let's carry on to chapter 3.